Now, once again, good morning, everyone. So our topic for this is about a case study, no, of web system development or even web information system development. So the World Wide Web is a technologically active environment and information systems developed for the World Wide Web differ in significant areas from traditional applications. So existing literature has suggested that software development methodologies for traditional application may have to be modified, no, or indeed replaced to meet the needs of the World Wide Web. Consequently, a number of software development methodologies emerged to support the development of WW-based information systems. So the current software development methodologies used by organizations in developing World Wide Web-based information system is used to investigate in the context of the organizations how various World Wide Web-based informations are developed and the reason why particular strategies are used. Now, the organizations were selected on differences in type, size, and information systems developed. So the core finding of the research was done develop the WW-based information system is dominated by challenges presented by new technology. So in addition, organizations take a structured problem-solving approach rather than adapting methodologies specified design for the World Wide Web. So it is also indicate that deficiencies existed in the development strategies used, principally in the area of inadequate guidelines and lack of documentation. So over the past few years, the focus of the information technology industry has moved towards development of the World Wide Web. Information system using World Wide Web technology delivered by an intranet or via the internet are how prevalent throughout the country or overseas. So it is a wide variety of organizations are deploying information system onto the World Wide Web, including banks, government departments, and other service providers. So they are using World Wide Web as strategic business tools, supporting their existing operations or providing a low-cost solution for delivering a new product or service line. Okay, so to give us more details about the topic, let us all welcome our presenter.
Good morning, excuse me. Good morning, sir. Good morning, classmates. My topic for today is about case studies of web system development. In this chapter, we present a complete development of the online property search system using the UML2 web synthesis tool. We also illustrate the automated generation of a JSP-based architecture for a web system. I'll be focusing on this topic, I'll be focusing on JSP architecture. Here are the things that we're going to be discussed today. JSP stands for Java Server Pages. They are the pages that act from the server and contain the Java code. It is a server-side technology or in any web application, and there are two main sides, the client and the server. To handle the client side, we need the client-side technology like HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. To handle server requests and response criteria, we need server-side technologies like JSP. We can also have other server-side technologies like PHP, Python. It also handles the back-end interaction with database and the processing in the server side. It is used for creating web application or web technology to create dynamic web content that is interacting with database of the applications. JSP tags are used to insert Java code into HTML pages. This is Java code that is inserted to HTML. Such pages are known as JSP. It is also the advanced version of the servlet technology. Servlet technology is the core Java code reside on the server side and its servlet technology. Then JSP are converted to servlets It is a web-based technology, help us to create dynamic and platform-independent web pages. It means that we can create any web pages on any platform and then we can execute them. Java code can be inserted in HTML or XML pages or both. The features of JSP. Here are the features of JSP. Coding in JSP is easy because it's user-friendly and you can just add Java code into HTML or XML pages. It reduces the length of the code because we are using action tags or custom tags that help us to in reduction of the code length. Excuse me. We perform connection to database to connect with websites with database, allow to read applications or write operation easily to the database. With the help of JSP, we can make interactive websites. We can create dynamic web which help user to interact with real-time environment. Other features of JSP, it's portable, powerful, flexible, and easy to maintain. No redeployment and no recompilation required because it's dynamic, secure, and platform independent. It is an extension to excuse me. It is an extension to Servlet as it has all the features of Servlet, implicit object, and custom tags. Here how JSP works. Here's a simple diagram on how JSP works. First, we need to create a source file. The source example of the source file is the extension name is .jsp. Then it is translated to Java. Then the Java file is compiled to Java class, and then the Java class is finally loaded as a servlet into the server. JSP pages are converted into servlet by the web container. The container translates JSP pages into servlet class source or .java file, and then it compiles into a Java servlet class. And then here's the life cycle of JSP. Translation, compilation, loading servlet class, creating servlet instance, initializing by calling JSP int method, requesting process, and destroying. Here's the diagram of the life cycle of JSP. First step is translation. It translates JSP pages to generate corresponding servlet source code. Then, if the translation is successful, the generated Java file is compiled by the container. Then it will be loaded in the servlet class. The next, it will create servlet instance. Then the initialization of this performed by calling jsp.int method. Then request is processed by calling JSP service method. Lastly, destroying is the last phase of this method. Is called when the container decides to unload JSP from memory. So there, if you can see the diagram, first it will, the JSP file will be translated here. And then here's the web container. JSP architecture, here's the JSP architecture. The web server needs a JSP engine to process JSP pages. The JSP container is responsible for intercepting requests for JSP pages. We can use Apache, which is built in JSP container to support JSP pages development. A JSP container works with web server to provide a runtime environment and other services as JSP needs. JSP processing. Here's the basic diagram of JSP processing. When a user navigate to a page ending with a .jsp extension in their web browser, the web browser sends an HTTP request to the web browser. Here, this one. And then the web server checks if a compiled version of JSP page already exists. If the JSP page's compiled version does not exist, the file is sent to the JSP servlet engine. It converts it into servlet content with .java extension. This process is known as translation. Then after translated, that Java file is compiled into the Java servlet class file. This is known as compilation. In the last step, the compiled class file of the servlet is executed and the result HTML is sent back to the client machine as an HTTP response. Here are the JSP syntax and JSP elements, or also known as JSP elements. A scriptlet can contain any number of Java language statements, variable, or method declaration or expressions that are valid in the page scripting language. A declaration declares one or more variable or methods that you can use in Java code later in the JSP file. You must declare the variable or method before you use it in the JSP file. A JSP expression element contains a scripting language expression that is evaluated, converted to a string, and inserted where the expression appears in the JSP file. Because the value of an expression is converted to a string, you can use an expression within a line of a text, whether or not it's tagged with HTML. In a JSP file, the expression element can contain an expression that is valid according to the Java language specification, but you cannot use a semicolon to end an expression. JSP comments mark text or statement that the JSP container should ignore. A JSP comment is useful when you want to hide or comment out a part of your JSP page. A JSP directive affects the overall structure of the servlet class. Here are the JSP objects. These objects are the Java objects that the JSP container makes available to the developer in each page, and the developer can call them directly without being explicitly declared. JSP implicit objects are also called predefined variables. The request object provides method to get the HTTP header information, including from data, cookies, HTTP methods, etc. The response object also defines the interface that deal with creating new HTTP headers. Through this object, the JSP programmers can add new cookies or date stamp HTTP status codes, etc. The out implicit object is an instance of a Java X servlet.jsp JSP writer object and is used to send content in a response. Session object is a representation of the JSP page through the entire life cycle. The object is created when the JSP page is initialized and will be removed when the JSP page is removed by the JSP destroy method. Config object allows the JSP programmer to access servlet or JSP engine initialization parameters such as path or file location, etc. Page context is intended as a mean to access information about the page while avoiding the most of the implementation details. The page object is really a direct synonym for this object. The expression object is a wrapper container the expression thrown from the previous page. It is typically used to generate an appropriate response from the error condition to the error condition. Here are the JSP actions. JSP actions are basically predefined functions. Predefined functions. Here are some functions of JSP. There, then this one. Sharing the data between JSP pages. Any real application consists of more than a single page. Multiple pages often need access to the same information in server-side resources. One page that retrieves the data to the user asks for another that displays it. For example, online shopping applications, yung mga ganun. Sharing data. Uh, I think that's all for my topic. Hope you learned something. Thank you. Sir, I'm done with my report po.
Okay, so once again, no, as I mentioned earlier, no, the complete development of the online proprietary search system using the UML2 web synthesis tool, and there are an automated generation of the JSP based architecture for a web system, as our presenter discussed. No, so the use cases of the property search system that we will synthesize code, no, for let's say, for example, from the customer to administrator, and of course for property search system, let's say we have create users, get user matches, create property, list users, and list properties. No, the most important things that we need to consider also in the designing, of course, is we need to identify the model transformation. No? So the standard format, let's say, for example, name, no, the description. When we say description, this will be the summary of the transformation effect. The motivation, no, the motivation, a situation when the transformation code or should be used. The diagram, of course, no, it will be the illustration of a typical applications of the transformation. And the conditions, the properties that must be satisfied of the transformation to be correct. So as with design patterns, now there are often many variants on model transformation that are possible, and some of these will also be described. And the there are five, no, main categories of model transformation. Number one, quality improvement transformations, elaborations, refinements, abstractions, and define or design patterns rather. No, so when it comes to quality improvement transformation, the transformation in this category aim to improve the structure of a model, so making it conform more closely to the normal uses of UML notations, or improving its precision or its flexibility for extension and adoption. The two general categories of quality improvement transformation are the removal of redundancy, and another one is the factoring out, decomposition of elements. So for the removal of redundancy, no, the introduce superclass, no, transformation is one example of the removal of redundancy from a model. So normally, redundancy should be eliminated. They complicate a model unnecessarily, and if implemented, lead to extra work and possibilities for program flaws. No, other example of such transformations are the removal of redundant inheritances and associations. So let's say, for example, for the name, no, introduce superclass. For the description, we need to introduce the superclass of several existing classes to enable common features of these classes. No. Another thing, of course, is I don't know if you're familiar with the Scrabble history and rules. No? The original form of Scrabble was invented by American architect, no, Siebold Butts. No? He wanted to create a game which combined the elements of skills in finding good moves and chance the random selection of the letters from the bag. No? Now, there's somebody still joining. Okay, I think that's it.